What is up, YouTube? We are back in the garage. I got the Evo Sporty queued up on the corner here. Fresh cold beer. Long day today. Sorry about the boat videos. I'm done, I promise. It's just new, fun, exciting. That's what I've been working on, and I figured I'd bring you guys along. Like it, don't like it, that's fine too. I don't really care. I don't want to make this a boat channel by any means, but new toy, I gotta play with it. So thank you for putting up with that. We just yanked it out of the lake, all the trailer issues with the board today. Get it 3/4 of the way up, and the old winch on the front snapped a tooth off. So new winch is coming. All of the things, essentially. The trailer itself is in really good shape. It's just everything else that's beat to crap. But enough about boats, because it's motorcycle time. It's starting to cool off a little bit, getting into that fall weather. So this Evo Sporty. We got some problems. I went through this once already, but not nearly as much as I should have, apparently. When I took this all apart and just kind of verified the top end was done okay, because supposedly this was a runner driver. It is far from that. Instead, this old guy, it's a 1200 S&S top end cylinders and piston kit. Hold on one second. Let me take care of these dogs. We'll be right back. The neighbors like walking their dogs at night. Rude. Mine are trying to jump over the fence, so... Oh, Bailey's trying to jump over the fence. Shovel's usually pretty good, so he's going to hang out with me in the garage tonight. Bailey's in the kitchen waiting for Dottie to drop some food. But anyways, Evo 1200 conversion. Not a stock Evo, so it's an 83 bottom end. 1200 S&S jugs, S&S pistons. On the internals, top end wise, we had this put back together on the bike. It fired right up. It was running okay. Carbs seemed to be doing okay for the little bit that we had. Had some oiling issues. I don't know what it was, genuinely. I pulled the entire rocker box apart on this and ran it in the bike. We were getting trickles of oil up to the top end. So yanked it all down, thinking that maybe the oil pump's shot or something. And I ended up going through, popping all the oil lines off, blowing through them. There was definitely some debris built up in one of the oil lines. I think it oil starved it, unfortunately, on a relatively fresh rebuild. So it's got to come back apart. And unfortunately, I just got really busy with a bunch of the car stuff, and I mean some of the other bike stuff too, but been too busy to get around to this. I bought another Evo, a 92. I think I got a 92 with a 5-speed, 1200 at the beginning of the year. Picked that one up, and I gave that one to Justice. He works for me at the shop. This is his motor. And the naked chopper frame that's sitting up there is also his as well. So this is the motor for the naked chopper frame that's up there. And he's been basically driving that bike that I picked up pretty cheap since I brought it home. I think a tail light rattled off or something, but for the most part, it's been a good bike. He's been running that all summer without issues, and I mechanically have done zero to that bike. Literally zero. I have not done anything. Brought it home. It was running when I brought it home. He's been riding it all summer. So once that one's done, I have a rigid Paco frame upstairs at the shop that'll go in there. But we got to figure out what we're doing with this. I don't know if, depending on how messed up this is internally, I might actually just trade him and I'll take this one. I don't mind the project component, and I kind of want to hot rod one of these. So we'll kind of see how that goes. The Paco frame upstairs is much nicer than the frame or the hardtail kit that he has in his. Personally, I think that one upstairs looks really nice. The one he's got has some weird lines to it that I don't love, but it works. So what we're going to be doing is disassembling this. I'm not going crazy and doing the whole thing yet. We'll kind of start at the top, work our way down, figure out what is needed. And I am not that well versed in Evos. Iron heads I am much more familiar with. I have a much better grasp on those. So I know how to take the top ends apart, know how to do the primary and like, it's not overly complicated, but everything is newer and I'm just not as familiar. So we're gonna do a full motor teardown on this and kind of see what we gotta do. So we'll start at the top, I guess. Let me get you guys set up and we'll start ripping parts off of this thing. I'm gonna be bouncing back and forth between toolkits, which I usually don't like doing, but when I'm working on a motor on the stand, all my normal tools are right here. All my service card stuff is right there, so I can kind of go on both sides if need be. But we're gonna start with the rockers. Literally just start at the top, work our way down. Oh, and like I was saying with that oil issue that we kind of had, once I pulled the lines off and blew some crap out of there, it was perfectly fine. I don't know what it was that got caught in there, but afterwards, it was oiling the top end like it's supposed to. So for right now, I'm just gonna make a big old pile of parts. Let me get a bin. Maybe that's better. We'll designate one Evo Sporty bin because I don't know how long this will be apart. One bin for Evo stuff. Now on the upper rockers, I'm just gonna leave all this connected because the gasket's still stuck on the top. We'll try and keep those together. And yeah, we'll do two sides of it. I was thinking about just doing the one at a time. Start at the front jug and work our way down, but my gut instinct right now is that these flywheel bearings are not that happy. So basically on the rockers, we got 3/16 bolts all the way around. I'm not gonna go crazy in depth on these because I feel like Evo Sportsters are probably one of the most covered bikes on the YouTube and internet. You know, Lowbrow and Builtwell and all of them are making a bunch of videos on these and chopper conversions and all that crap. They're really versatile. So I understand why these are as popular as they are. They run well, they make a ton of power. You can get them relatively cheap. I mean, Ironheads were kind of the same way too, but they're definitely a little more finicky than the newer stuff. Then we'll pop the intake, I guess. So on the intake, you get your 1/2-inch bolt on one and then a Allen stud on the other. Shell's looking around the garage, wondering what we're doing with an Evo in here. He likes the old stuff too. But it kind of is what it is. Like I said, I'm not overly critical or overly picky about what it is. I like motorcycles and I like Harley stuff. I like Jap bike stuff too, actually, but not really into the crotch rockets. I like the older 70s Hondas and Cowies. My old bike was a 70, what did I have? A 78, 76. 78 kind of been that year that I just tend to get most of the time. I don't know why. I know it's AMF stuff, but had a lot of 78s in my day, be it Jap bikes or American, but I don't know. I like them. Old vintage stuff is cool to me. I don't really care about newer stuff, but I'm not finicky or picky when it comes to what's what. So I'm gonna break them free with an Allen key on the intake bolts, and we'll use a ball end the rest of the way. So once you get the torque off, use the ball end to expedite it a little bit. Do not try and use the ball end first. Sometimes you'll get lucky, but sometimes it goes catastrophically wrong, and that's not fun. I like to try and at least make sure they can get broken free first. Or if you do, which I'm gonna do exactly what I just said I don't like doing, don't use a impact on the initial. Those little ball ends aren't that hard to break off. But once you get them loose, they are slotted on one side of the intake, on the stud side, which is kind of helpful. Don't lose your washers. Our intake should be about free. We're gonna drop these right back into the cylinders as well. Come on now. There we go. One bolt was a little tight, so we're gonna leave all this together. I'm gonna throw the bolts back onto the head for now, just so you don't lose them. Overall, I don't know. I'm happy every time I ride an Evo. They just don't feel as fun to me. They don't have the character. They don't shake you around as much. Make way more power and go quicker for a non-built Ironhead, I think. But I don't know. There's something about the old ones that just feel better. Now we're on this side, so I'm gonna mix and match my sockets, which is my least favorite thing to do. But we're gonna start popping the head bolts. We'll start on the front, or the upper rocker bolts rather, and try and get these push rods all out. Got a 1/2 inch up here on the big ones. And then a 7/16. I'll walk you through one head. I don't know if I'm going to go through the whole thing on the rear unless something pops up. They're identical in nature. Actually, let me pop these little ones. And the push rods are going to keep these under some tension, so you kind of got to watch that. So I like, I know I kind of blasted these apart pretty quick, but this one was still threaded in. These are still threaded in, and then on the small little 7/16 ones, well, 7/16 heads, I let those ones kind of hang out for a little bit. Didn't go all the way on some of these. But now we'll make sure they're all free and floating. Once all of these are off, I'm going to pull this whole assembly off together and keep all the bolts right where they belong, like so. And I'll drop these this way. So basically what I'm doing on this bin, if you want to follow along, not that it matters, however you guys want to, if you want to bag and tag them and keep everything organized, it's probably not a bad idea, but here's kind of what we're working with. So I got front, rear, and I'll make sure this stays just like this for the entire duration. If I need to grab another bin, I have extras over there for bottom end stuff and cylinders and things like that, but this is how we're going to start at least. So if you look up top, there's definitely some oil residue on here. So it is getting oil up to the top end, I know that. Actually, I ran it with everything apart, so I know for a fact that it's getting oil to the top end. But I think it took too long for that to clear up. I didn't build this motor completely, so again, unknown condition when I took it apart. Not that this couldn't happen to anybody, but I don't know, it just kind of is what it is. On iron, or Evos, I'm going to say that a million times during this series, so don't mind me. But on Evos, you do have markings on the push rods. We have a single stripe. We have 3 stripes. So those kind of go that way. Exhaust is the outside. This is the intake. I think what I'm going to do is label these with a paint marker. I'm just going to label the intake side of both, just for my own reference. So now I got the intakes labeled. This can come out and we'll drop down in the bin. And now that it's a YouTube video and published on the internet, when I forget which one goes where later, I can reference this and we'll be all right. Head gasket still looks really good. We'll see. I think I still have a gasket kit for this somewhere. Now, I was just about to move to this side and kind of keep working my way that way. I'm indecisive at this point. I know the whole top end's coming off, so let's just keep doing that. We'll jump to a time lapse while I do the rear, because it's the exact same as the front. So I'll time lapse this and then we'll be back when I'm done. I got a little bit ahead of myself while I was doing that, so I apologize, but all I did was take a 12-point half-inch socket on a breaker bar and broke the head bolts, again, not studs on an Evo because they are actual bolts, but broke the head bolts loose from their torque Now, when you're doing that, once you pop them free, there might still be a little bit of tension in on here, but like I said, we yanked the push rods already, but the collars still have springs and things, so this one just popped up. So I'll grab that same 12 or half-inch 12 point, and we'll rip these up. Don't think you'll be able to do that with the electric impact, but this is kind of what it is. There's studs that come up, and then these are like sleeved, they're nuts rather, that thread down in there. This is what it looks like. Let's go with that, since my brain's not working right now. The studs are only halfway up from the cylinders, so it'll stick up above this. We'll see that in a minute. But make sure they're all loose and free, and we'll yank these off. Push rod springs on this side kind of popped this up a little bit. So we'll lift that up. We lost an O-ring for one of the push rods here. Like so. Oh, it's dripping oil. So this is the rear cylinder. We're going to drop this right back in. I guess we could take a look at this real quick actually. So here's the bottom side of the head. Combustion chamber. It doesn't have a lot of run time, but we got oil coming through. This looks pretty good though. I mean, it's a little carboned, a little dark, but not crazy. Not like it was running crazy rich or anything like that. So we'll drop this in. Harley heads are labeled. You do have a rear stamped right here, or the S heads. No, these are Harley heads. Harley heads are labeled, so it does have a front and rear. We'll drop these in the bin where they go. And we'll do the same thing on the front. Hoping not to drop that. That was not as gentle as I wanted it to be, but it happens. Pretty even color here, so we're looking okay on this one. Drop these right back in the bin. And I'll come over and grab all my push rod crap that I just dropped on the floor. So we got the caps here and here, and then it looks like we lost one. Oh, I think one O-ring probably stayed in the head. Those I do have a ton of, so I'm not overtly concerned about that. Put those on the front side. Pull these guys up, and we'll put these on the back side of the box. Now we are ready to essentially just pull the cylinders up. On earlier stuff, iron head, shovels, any of the old cast stuff, your cylinders bolt down onto the bottom of the case, and the top end is bolted, well, up, really. Iron heads are long bolts that go down from the head. Shovel heads are studs that, or bolts that come up from the bottom. So what that means is, on the older stuff, here's a shovel, your bolts are going to mount the cylinder onto the case, and then you have head bolts up here that go up into the head. So you got 5 of these that come up, 3 on this side, I think 2 on the other, if I remember correctly, on a shovel. But on an Evo, I think this is how big twins are set up too. Don't quote me on it, I've never really worked on an Evo big twin yet. But on these, the cylinders rest over the studs, and then the machined part of these heads, the head bolts, are what actually, one, gap it, and then these tighten in and close up the gaps so you don't have a bunch of cylinder play on the studs like we do now. Quick little lesson if you're just getting into this. If you do a ton of these, hopefully you found somebody better or learned from smarter people than me. But now we get to see how messed up these cylinders are from lack of oil. This is kind of where I'm hoping our problem's going to end, but we're going to find out. So actually, let me take care of the dogs real quick, then we'll come back and yank these cylinders out. I messed up. I left the cover off the flat top, and we got some rain, so that's going to turn into a chore. And I left the propane hooked up, and Daddy's trying to grill, so whoops on my part. And now my dogs are going crazy again. Can't anybody just calm down and let me work? Okay, so cylinders now. There's nothing holding these on. Where is my dead blow? My half dead blow. Really nice to tools around here. So, see how stuck these are. Oh yeah, she toast. You guys see that? Definitely not happy. Scraped like crazy across the bottom. That's unfortunate. This piston looks like crap. Wow. Don't believe what they tell you when they say everything's good to go. I'm not denying any responsibility on this at all, but these cylinders are toast. Might be boreable, but definitely is going to need pistons, which means how much metal do we have down here? What do I want to do next? Giving these rods a jiggle. I think I'll wait till I get with the studs coming up so high I can't really get all the way down there and get a good grab on this. Honestly, the rods, we'll yank the pistons off, but the rods don't feel that bad. I think this is the culprit though. This front cylinder looks awful. This one also looks awful. So that's it. She just wasn't getting enough oil. That's unfortunate. Ruined brand new pistons. Oh, we lost a chunk of piston ring. So now I'm going to keep digging into this and getting farther, because we're going to have to clean up a bunch of crap anyway. Let me bring you guys in closer. I'm dying to know, but I kind of knew what the result would be. Roasted. I don't know if you can see that, but with my fingernail, this is toast to toast. We got metal in the ring lands. Missing a chunk of piston ring up here, it looks like. This one's really bad. That's a deep gouge. Toasty. Fronts don't look so bad. It looks like it had some coating on here, so that might have saved them a little bit, but not enough. I ran it too long without getting full oil pressure. Should have checked that first. This is what happens when you run a chopper with no oil light, because it's not like it fired up and sounded like this immediately. There's a little bit of valve clatter, but ran it too long. Live and learn. It's an Evo. Should be fixable, hopefully. We might just have to overbore these and get some oversized pistons, but we'll look into that next. Let me yank the pistons off. What are these? Oh, we got the easy ones. Little circlips, not the little spiral locks. So pop the pistons off, throw these back in the according cylinders, and keep digging. Hopefully the cam chest is okay and not filled with oil. That's the biggest concern I have at this juncture, is how far did everything go when we fired this motor up. So there was a lot of metal shavings coming out when we drained the oil on this. I don't remember if I had a video of that or not, but full rebuild, maybe. Let me get these pistons out and get set up to pull these pistons out. Okay, onto the cylinders, like I said. Got you guys set up on the tripod. I'm gonna grab a little pick and a small screwdriver. Luckily, these are the relatively easy ones. At least they looked that way. So I got a crappy little Harbor Freight pick here with the tip kind of broken off on the long end, but I like these for this because they kind of let you get underneath this. And I'll show you what these rings look like. Do your best to hold on to these while you're getting them off. They're under spring pressure, so sometimes they like to go flying. Just kind of brace yourself for that, if you will. But these pistons actually have a little skirt. So once I'm at this point, I'll grab a little flathead and kind of give it an assist the best I can, like so. There we have it. Nice little snap ring type. Much easier than your spiral clips. I don't have a problem with the spiral clips, but getting them started can be kind of a pain sometimes. So I'll get this behind it, hold it with the hook, second little screwdriver, and I'll keep my thumb over the snap ring as we kind of work it around. And then I'll just go on the back side, keep pushing, and there we have it. Snap rings are out. So now I'm only taking off one side of these. Now that the snap rings are off, we're gonna go to the other side and push the pins out. Hopefully these aren't roasted. If they are, this will turn into a much more interesting ordeal. I'm trying to find the biggest socket I can that fits in between the circlip. We're going to try a 7/16 here. And a hammer. Oh, we're lucky. Getting ready to tap this out. So normally when I see pistons that are this oil starved, I kind of expected that this internal bottom side, I do have oil all over the skirts, but I think we just caught it too late in the game. But these slid right out perfect, so that's good at least. Then I'll throw these little circlips right back in a second. Just the one? No. Alright, so the back one was in a little bit more, or a little snugger than the front. These don't look too terrible. Can't feel, it's got some lines in it, but I can't feel anything with a nail. So we'll take a look at that in a little bit. But we'll drop these all right back in together. I don't know, new pistons will come with new pins. Ooh. Look at that. Is that showing up? This is what you don't want. It's not what your piston should look like. Now, we'll press these rings back in. The clip is on this side, so pins all the way back in. And we will go ahead and drop these snap rings back in. They pretty much go in the opposite. Get it seated and work it in around the ringland. I usually try and get the end of this just past the groove here. Start with the back side, like so. And just work them in. Dogs are going nuts again. Sorry about that. I hate that part. It's too nice out, so I'm trying to leave the dogs out as much as possible, but they're not the best with sharing the neighborhood, if you will. So we'll keep working these around, try and get the back seated. This might actually be easier on the table where I can steadily get a grab on it. Where did my screwdriver go? I'll drive these in. Your nail works actually a little bit better, and then just use this to keep pushing it in. But now I got those retainer rings all back together. Which one's which? Here's the front. Not that it matters, but I'll throw a little F on here because that was the front piston. Slide the pin back in. This one's in much worse shape than the other one in terms of free pressing in like it's supposed to, but it doesn't matter. We'll be getting replaced, and I'm not really worried about maintaining these pistons because they're toast. So let me get back to the snap ring. We'll drop this back in. Come on now. Don't fight me. The internet's watching. Also trying not to hurt myself today. So just keep it, if you get half of it in, keep pressure on it, get underneath, and just kind of give it a quick little push. Snap right back in place where it should. I wonder how bad the cost on S&S pistons is going to be if I go with the stock one. It's been a while since I looked. But got those all bagged and tagged now, so now we can kind of take a better look at the crank itself. And what I'm looking for here is a lot of up and down play, and I'm also not that familiar with Evos, so if you guys know Evos more than I do, I know on the big twins and on the older stuff, left to right isn't nearly as bad. You don't want an excessive amount, obviously, but it's more the up and down, which I'm not feeling a whole lot of, but you should have some side-to-side wiggle. I don't know what the specs are on one of these. So I'm kind of lifting up on the crank here. I don't know. Okay, so now I'm going to go through and I'm going to label the lifters. And we'll get these things laid out. I guess I actually don't have to. I'll label an intake and exhaust, but your bolts go one way. Again, Evo stuff is a little new to me. I didn't realize that these were offset for the bolts. So we'll just put a little mark on these. Doesn't matter which. But I'll just keep labeling the intakes on these. So now I'm gonna pop the lifter blocks off. That'll free up the cam side. I don't think I'm gonna get into the cam chest today or the primary because that's gonna make a big old mess. And I don't really feel like doing that. I don't wanna get that dirty tonight. Just doing the top end breakdown on this one. So let me take out these lifters first. That should come up relatively quick and easy. We're gonna try and clean up because I'm trying to stay cleaner now. Well, always trying to stay cleaner, but I'm gonna try and do a better job of staying clean consistently and put some of our tools away more frequently instead of leaving a big old pile and cleaning it all up and taking an entire day to tear my entire garage apart. Not the most efficient. Just gets hard when you're running around doing a million different projects or trying to work on stuff when you never actually have time to do so. I don't know if there's a little pry point on these or not, but I would assume that it's going to be just like an iron head. Yeah, you can swivel those over a little bit, and then we'll grab a screwdriver, a bar. Use my soft epoxied one and just kind of pry these guys up. They probably sell a fancy tool for this too. That won't mess up your lifter all that much. But if you're gentle, I don't think you'll mess them up too bad. I'm gonna re-throw a new paint line on here. A little too oily for comfort. Give it a quick little wipe down here. Oh, never mind. Front intake, they're labeled. Thank you, Evo people. Never would have known. You learn something new every day. So we're gonna put the bolts back in the lifter block. And then these two will go back in the bin. See how lucky I can get here. I'm gonna pry off of this a little bit just to get it turned. FE. Well done, Harley-Davidson. Makes my job much easier. Lifters can go back in the bin. Oh, we probably should have checked the lifters too, since this was an oil starve issue. Lifters also, well, nothing in a motor likes not having oil. So, kind of is what it is. Hope for the best, but I knew that this motor had to come apart, and based on the way it sounded, honestly, I'm surprised it's not worse. So this is kind of a win in my book. This running perfectly would have been a better win, obviously, but things happen. Can't win them all. Also, one of the reasons why I don't ever trust. Oh yeah, it's ready to go. Good to run. I don't know if there's anything I missed on this. I did pull the cylinders and everything off. I will say, whoever had this before me, I remember I did that. So I do remember that much. Everything looked decent when I ripped all of this apart. I wouldn't have put it back together if it seemed super messed up or janky. So it looked like it was done proper. I could not have anticipated an oil line thing. It doesn't take that long to fry a motor. My fault here was probably running it as long as it did before I addressed it. I thought it was the lifters. I thought they just needed to pump up, but oil pressure gauge is your friend, or an oil pressure light. Work wonders on fresh motor starts. That would have saved us quite a bit of money and time. So, live and learn. It happens. You're gonna work on stuff, you're gonna mess up and have to do it over and eat the cost, which is kind of part of the learning process, I guess. I'll tell you one thing. I will verify that every Evo Sporty will be getting oil pressure moving forward. Actually, I will verify that every bike will be getting oil pressure moving forward. It's a simple step, especially if you can pre-run them. On kick-only stuff, it's a little goofy, but on the early stuff, you can still do it. On the late stuff with an electric starter, yank those plugs, crank the thing over. You don't want to go too crazy, but you got assembly lube on the pistons. It's one quick little way to check. So, how much farther do I want to go today? Screw it. Let's take the cam chest off. No, we're actually going to stop there. Dottie's cooking dinner, and this will turn into a much bigger ordeal. I got to pull the ignition out. So we'll have ignition, cam chest, then we'll work our way over to the primary. I really don't know how far I'm going to have to go. This is the crappy part, right? Like, in my head, if we're going to do it, let's yank the whole thing completely apart and rebuild the whole motor. But then I'll have to get into pulling the trans and all the other stuff. How does this feel? Okay, so at the very minimum, what I'm going to do is pull the cam chest and the cams to go through. This honestly doesn't feel terrible. Doesn't really. I'm not catching. It's a little notchier than I'd like, but I also have the full trans hooked up to this as well. So typically when I'm cranking over a motor and doing a test on rotation of the flywheels, usually it's when I just glued the cases back together and I'm checking that before everything else is in and loaded. I do want to pull the cam chest. I'm looking in through here. It doesn't look terrible. I know this isn't going to show up that well on the camera, but you can see a little bit. Let me see if I got a light. I don't have my light here. I'm looking at the cam lobes. They don't look terrible. You know, you got your typical wear pattern on the roller, but I don't see any gouges or anything in there. So maybe that's okay. Primary side, again, this is kind of that, do I roll the dice or do I take it all the way apart and do it right? As of right now, I'm kind of leaning towards taking it all apart just for peace of mind. Since we've already had one issue with this, oh, look at that, just kicking it over like that. Oil pressure. So, I don't know. That'll be the end of this video. Let me think on this overnight and figure out how far we're going to actually disassemble this. I don't mind taking it all the way down. Never done an Evo, so lots of learning for me on that end. It is an 86 motor, so it's 87 maybe. It's not all that different. Very similar to an iron head, so maybe we'll just do a quick freshen up and then verify everything once we start ripping all these pieces off and go from there. So thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Hey, if you've been waiting for bike stuff, I promised it was coming. Now you can roast me in the comments for saying, oh, I thought I wanted to watch bike stuff, and then it's just Evo Sporties, right? Oh well, they're still fun. Lots to do, lots to learn. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.